Happy Friday. We have made it to the end of the week. It is great to be here on KCMO 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. You can find our podcasts and everything else right there. So, John and Mark missed out on another great rally that you guys could have been a part of yesterday.
Oh, really?
I know. I figured you might make this one, but that's okay. Seems like there's a rally every day in this town for God knows what at this point, but yesterday, it was for Proposition A, which passed through the voters in the state of Missouri back in November. This was paid sick leave for everybody in the state of Missouri. And there's a bill going through the Missouri legislature that would repeal the earned sick pay portion of the proposition. Now, this part of the proposition is supposed to go into effect May 1st, so just 3 weeks from now. However, this bill that is supposed to repeal or would repeal the earned sick pay portion of the proposition has already passed the state house. So now you had rallies yesterday across the state of Missouri, basically lobbying against the repeal of the earned sick pay portion of Proposition A. Now, I've always felt that this Proposition A was going to destroy and really impact smaller businesses, not just in Kansas City, but especially in rural Missouri. Right? This was going to send costs up tremendously for small businesses all over the state in a completely unfair manner. I mean, I just look at it and I say, okay, not every industry can afford to do paid sick leave. And there are a lot of industries you can work for that will give you paid sick leave. You should work for that industry and work in that industry and work your way up to a point where you have the job that you want that has the benefits that you would like. And for those that say, nope, socioeconomics, we can't always get there. It's too difficult. No, I'm not buying that. I'm not. I do not buy that for a second. So this is, frankly, really about making very difficult rules and regulations for certain businesses and certain industries, especially in certain parts of the state that are operating on very slim margins. And here was what the rally sounded like. This is courtesy of Fox 4 yesterday.
What do we want?
Paid sick days.
When do we want it?
Now.
Is that you, Mark? Was that your voice?
Wasn't me.
I know. It wasn't you. I know. You got paid sick leave anyway. You're fine.
Yeah, that's
okay.
true.
Guy had a 3-month paternity leave. He's okay. He's
I'm
fine.
Great.
We're taking care of him, okay? He's fine.
That portion from Proposition A is supposed to go into effect May 1st, but a bill repealing that has already passed the state house. It has not passed the state Senate yet. The Missouri Jobs for Justice group says it's concerned.
We feel like we won fair and square in November, and we have the support of over 500 businesses across the state of Missouri who are in support of paid sick time, and many are already, including Oddly Correct, are already implementing this.
The Missouri Restaurant Association, on the other hand, wants sick leave repealed. We asked them how they think the state Senate feels about this issue, as Senate President Cindy O'Laughlin wouldn't comment on this story Thursday.
They absolutely agree something needs to change because this is not business friendly. This will hurt businesses. But I don't know that the Senate has the appetite for total repeal of sick pay. I believe they have more of an appetite for making this a little more business friendly and palatable for the communities.
We also asked CEO Buddy Law whether he thought the will of the voters was being circumvented after Proposition A passed by 15%.
The November election only passed in Kansas City, Springfield, St. Louis, Columbia. The rest of rural Missouri, it did not pass.
That was Fox 4, Jonathan Ketz, right here on KCMO Talk Radio. And that final point's an important one. And it's the entire point of this whole conversation, right? So this Prop A increased minimum wage from $12.30 to $13.75 an hour on January 1 of this year. And it'll bump up to $15 an hour January 1 of next year. The sick pay portion of Prop A in Missouri is supposed to go into effect May 1st of this year unless the legislature does something about it. And We'll have Scott Fawn of the Missouri Times on the show at 7:50 this morning to do more of a deep dive into whether or not this is going to happen and what exactly this will mean. But this is why a one-size-fits-all approach, when you talk about minimum wage, as the gap between rural America and urban America and suburban America grows in terms of cost of living, these policies are even worse. They make even less sense. Because I'm telling you, I mean, there's always been a gap, obviously, between cost of living in urban and suburban settings and rural settings, but it is growing because you've seen a shrinkage in rural America. That's what you've seen. It has been happening now for years, and obviously access to internet is a big driver of that, but there's a lot of things that are factoring into that. So you cannot treat, Maryville like you would Kansas City. You just can't do it. You can't treat Bethany like you would Independence. And that's why, these Prop A type ballot initiatives in places like Missouri, they're more likely to pass because of the way the ballot language is written. And they're also more likely to pass because, let's be honest, there's a ton of money that gets dumped in to what is the big government, more liberal side of these ballot initiatives. That's always how it works. And that's why these things pass. So the legislature's looking at this, and we'll find out later this morning what exactly that is going to look like. Now, at the national level, at the federal level, yesterday, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, spoke during a cabinet meeting with President Trump. And we don't know exactly where this is going to be, but I thought it was fascinating when she brought up some major arrests coming regarding some of the burning of Cybertrucks at Tesla dealers around the country. She didn't say where, but of course this happened here in Kansas City about, 3-4 weeks ago now, right on State Line Road. You had those 2 Cybertrucks that caught fire. The ATF and the FBI are investigating. We haven't heard anything about this because, it's the feds in charge, and obviously they don't budge, nor should they in this case. But Pam Bondi said yesterday to the President of the United States, we are very close on an arrest in one of these Cybertruck fires from one of these Tesla dealers. And I suppose it could be here in Kansas City.
Also gave us a directive to prosecute the people who are going after Tesla to the fullest extent of the law, some of the greatest police work I've seen. We've made 4 arrests. There will be no negotiations at your directive. They're all looking at 20 years in prison, and within the next 24 hours, you're going to be seeing another huge arrest on a Tesla dealership, President, and that person will be looking at least 20 years in prison with no negotiations.
That's great. That will stop it. Cold.
Prevent the terrorism.
Thanks. Doing a great job, too.
That's great. That's great. He's right. That is great. And it could be right here in Kansas City. I don't know if it's going to be regarding the fires that took place at our Tesla dealer, or, of course, there's the Vegas one as well that had 5 Cybertrucks that got lit in fire. But in the words of Donald Trump, that's great. It's just great.
Sentence would seem more like the fire than the key scratchers, probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time. Make a fool out of these individuals. As you heard somebody say there, I don't know whose voice it was at the very end, but it is domestic terrorism. There is no doubt about it. Now, coming up, I'm questioning DOGE right now after something I heard yesterday from Elon Musk. And it's the first time I heard this something, and I thought to myself, why are we even bothering? I'll share it with you coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO. And as always, we are streaming on a beautiful, crisp Friday morning across Kansas City on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, I absolutely love DOGE, and I appreciate what they've been trying to do when your federal government's $36 trillion in debt and is running $2.5 trillion annual deficits. But I do not like what I heard from Elon Musk yesterday at all. And I'm worried that already just about 3.5, 4 months in to the administration, there are people who are backing off of the big promises. There are people who are suddenly saying, you know what, maybe we can't do this, maybe we can't do that. And I'm at the point where if Elon Musk and DOGE are not going to just absolutely take a sledgehammer to a federal budget that is totally out of control, then they should just shut down DOGE. It's not worth the political capital that it's wasting if they're not going to do the heavy lifting. Why do you need DOGE if Elon Musk, during a cabinet meeting yesterday, comes out and says, yeah, we got $150 billion in cuts here. 150. Wait, $150 billion? This guy was talking about $1 trillion in cuts within the first 130 days of his tenure as the head of DOGE. And now yesterday, in this cabinet meeting, he's bragging about $150 billion. It's 15% of what the promise was.
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented DOGE team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion. And I mean, and some of it is just absurd, like people getting unemployment insurance who haven't been born yet. I mean, I think anyone can appreciate whether, I mean, come on, that's just crazy. You know, some of these things, people ask me, like, well, how are you going to find waste and fraud in the government? I'm like, well,
all right, we'll stop right there, and then I'll continue the clip from Elon Musk. But he talks about reducing fraud and waste by $150 billion. If you want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, well, they've talked about slashing $1 trillion in federal spending, not necessarily $1 trillion in waste and fraud, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. And I really hope that $1 trillion is still a goal of theirs because, man, we need it. I mean,
the issue is they're not whacking enough.
We really need to keep whacking. Okay? That's what we need to do. And if we're now going to sit here and celebrate $150 billion in cuts when the goal was $1 trillion, I'm not going to do it. We have one final opportunity here to reset the relationship that this federal government has with its people, with its taxpayers, and with its citizens. And if we're not going to do it now, at this moment in American history, I don't think it'll ever get done in any of our lifetimes. I just don't see it. Let's continue with Elon from yesterday.
Well, actually, just go in any direction. That's how you find it. It's very common. it's as the military would say, target-rich environment. So I think we're doing a lot of good in excellent collaboration with the cabinet to achieve these savings. And it will actually result in better services for the American people, and that we're going to be spending their tax dollars in a way that is sensible and fair and good.
And your people are fantastic.
All right, that's great. I mean, I love the DOGE guys, and I hope that this is just the start. I hope that we're not sitting here just celebrating $150 billion in savings for fiscal year 2026, because frankly, that's not nearly enough. It's not close to what we need to be cutting. And there's been a lot of political capital expended on this, right? I mean, DOGE has been, and Elon Musk has been, at the center of the Democratic Party's rallies and protests for weeks now. They call Elon Musk the co-president. They go after Elon Musk arguably more than they've gone after Donald Trump. There's a lot of political capital that is being spent on DOGE, and I'm happy about that. It needs to happen. But you cannot then just kind of work around the edges. If you're going to waste a lot of political capital on this, and Elon Musk has wasted a lot, not wasted, but spent a lot of time. It's impacted his businesses, as we know. We've got cyber trucks getting lit on fire here on State Line Road in Kansas City. So this has impacted Elon, his businesses. It's impacted Trump. It's impacted the Republican Party, obviously. And I believe the payoff is well worth it in the end. But they better go all in. They better not start backtracking and backing off of this and being like, well, we'll just kind of shave something off the edges here and go from there. No, I mean, this is what is driving people like Kansas City Congressman Emanuel Cleaver to bizarre rants outside of federal buildings that make absolutely no sense.
You mustard moo.
6:25, I got it in on a Friday. I'm done. I'll see you next week. No, I'm good. But it's like that's the kind of stuff that's happening because of Elon Musk and DOGE. So if DOGE is just going to work around the edges, then just put someone in Congress or take some people in Congress and put them to work for once in their lives. Just do that. Just shut down DOGE because it's been the hub of the Democratic protests and rallies in recent weeks. And if they are not going to just absolutely blast this federal spending and really look under the hood and find all the dirt and dig really deep and find all the corruption that I believe and many of us believe is involved in our federal spending and has been for a very long time, then I don't have the time of day. I will remain hopeful because I want to remain hopeful. But I can't sit here and tell you I was not disappointed when Elon was bragging about $150 billion yesterday. It's got to go a lot further than that, especially when DOGE has bragged about this was put up on their DOGE X account the other day. An initial survey of unemployment insurance claims since 2020 revealed the following. 24,000 people over 115 years old claimed $59 million in benefits. 28,000 people between the ages of 1 and 5 years old claimed $254 million in benefits. Oh, now I know why my middle child, Chloe, was talking about buying a new Porsche the other day. Now I know what's going on in the house. 10,000 people with birth dates over 15 years in the future claimed $69 million in benefits. 10,000 people with birth dates over 15 years in the future. So we're talking about at least 2040 they're putting down for their birth dates, and they somehow got their hands on $70 million of your taxpayer money. And in one case, someone with a birthday in 2054 claimed $41,000. You have got to be kidding me. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, and I hope that the work being done by DOGE is just the tip of the iceberg. Because, boy, do we need it. 913-408-7957. 2 minutes till the news here on KCMO Talk Radio, and a big override on one side of our state line. We will get to you coming up on 95.7 FM. Well, we're getting to that time of year when there's actually a lot happening in both of our state capitals. It really is kind of boring until the very end. And then at the very end, you're like, okay, what's actually happening in Topeka? What's happening in Jeff City that matters to me? Next hour, we will talk to individuals from both sides of the state line. Kansas Speaker of the House Dan Hawkins will be here at 7:05. Just booked him and finalized that in the last few minutes. And then we will have Scott Fawn from the Missouri Times on Jeff City at about 7:50. So this is when it matters, right? I have people reach out all the time from Jeff City and Topeka, and it'll be like February. And they'll say, hey, we'd love to have so-and-so on to talk about this bill. I'm like, pass the bill or get close to passing it, and then we can have a conversation. I'm not going to waste your time, you, the listener. I'm not going to waste your time talking about a bill that's a hypothetical. Unless it's something that is like so insane that you need to know about it ahead of time to like call your lawmakers. But if it's like, hey, I want to like cut property taxes by 7 cents. Can I come on the show? No, you can't. I'm sorry. And then sell it as like, a $100,000 cut for, it's like, no, we're not doing that right now. Okay. We're not going to do that. But yesterday, as we head down the home stretch, there's a lot of overriding happening in Topeka, as you would imagine, when it comes to Governor Kelly. And yesterday, Kansas House lawmakers overrode Governor Kelly's vetoes of what the Kansas Reflector is calling 2 anti-abortion bills, sending the measures to the Senate. Kelly vetoed these bills on Wednesday, and they required 2/3 of both chambers voted to overturn them. First, you've got House Bill 2062. That creates what critics call fetal personhood language within a bill that cements child support payments for mothers based on pregnancy costs before a baby is born. How could you be against that? Now, notice how it's framed there in this Kansas Reflector piece. It creates what critics call. Who cares what the critics call it? What does it do? Framing a journalism piece through the eyes of the critics is not how you go about journalisming. And
No. That's the third sentence of every article that you write.
You're right.
Expert, critic.
Expert, critic, yes.
Those in favor.
Yes.
Proponents.
Yes. You're right. If it fits their narrative, then that's how it gets framed in sentence number 3, John, to your point. That is so true. Critics say, experts believe, when it's like an anti-Republican piece of legislation.
My grandma estimates. Right?
Oh, man. Critics call fetal personhood language within a bill that cements child support payments for mothers based on pregnancy costs before a baby is born. That's not an anti-abortion bill. That's basically saying to loser dads that you will support your child before that child is born. This is a pro-mother bill. It's a pro-baby bill. See, we know that, sadly, because of the Value Them Both bill, we know that, obviously, abortion is legal in Kansas. And that's heartbreaking. So what you're seeing right now from groups like Kansans for Life, who we will always support here on, or I will always support here on KCMO, is that they are trying to build legislation and pass legislation that is just pro-family, good pro-family policy, hoping that a young woman who might end up and be pregnant will decide to keep her child because of legislation like this that will make sure that she gets child support payments based on her pregnancy costs before a baby is born. So she does not decide to abort her child for the only reason that, well, I can't afford the cost of the pregnancy. This says, hey, fella, you're on the hook. And by the way, dad should be on the hook. There's nothing about this that is anti-abortion, as the Kansas Reflector calls it. But, this is what happens in area journalism. And you know what? I hesitate to even call it journalism. It's not. It's straight out propaganda. But it's also what you get from a lot of these folks, which is sad, but it's a reality for too many. And this is the direction they always want to go with this stuff. 913-408-7957. John, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, I disagree with your perception, but I agree with your position. And please give me a minute to explain. You have to understand the left. The moment you classify the finger quote clump of cells as anything other than that, in essence, identifying this as a potential person, as a potential human being, that's red flags for the left on this, because that means they've lost 1 inch on their position. That's why they see this as a threat. That's why they see this as anti-abortion, because the moment you start telling people, oh, it's not a clump of cells, it's not a bunch of embryonic fluid, what it really is, it's a baby. It's a human fetus. And the moment you do that, you push back on them saying, you're right. Maybe that is a baby. And oh my gosh, pregnancy, you mean that's a pregnancy? You mean that's what that means? That's why they're so against it, because the left knows one thing that the right never seems to understand. They will not stop. They will not give ground. If they give on this, then what's the next bill? oh my gosh, you mean this child has rights? Like not to have decide that they're, their gender identity at age 2 months, which at 2 months, I don't know how you know that anyway, but that's how they see this. They cannot give ground. And everywhere they look with their far left, their extreme left, they're seeing themselves when common sense Americans look at something and go, no, that ain't right. Mm-hmm. They're losing, and they don't know what to do. So I'm asking you.
No, John, you are right. You are absolutely
really?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, can you tell my wife that?
Have a good weekend, brother. You are spot on. You nailed it there, John. Drop the mic. Call it a day, buddy. That's great. You're right. And that's a big reason to be against it. They can't be for a bill that appears to be nothing more than being a pro-mother, pro-baby bill, because then they're ceding some ground on the broader issue, which is what John was getting at. They're ceding some ground on the idea that maybe there actually is a baby in there. Oh, my gosh, a child.
Talk about a bombshell.
A child of God. We can't have that happening. Now, the other thing that was overridden yesterday in Topeka, and this is also being called by the critics an anti-abortion bill. I'm going to explain this bill to you. You tell me how this is in any way an anti-abortion bill in Kansas. The bill mandates that school districts show a video of a developing fetus to students at any grade level during any course that deals with human growth, development, and sexuality. The video shown to students must be at least 3 minutes long, show the development of vital organs, and be a high-quality computer-generated animation or high-definition ultrasound, according to the bill. If we're going to have sex education talked about in schools, basically this is saying the school district will also have to show the development of a fetus, in proving that is not just, to John's point, a clump of cells. That is another bill that I would imagine most people would be able to get behind. I mean, how could you possibly think that we should be talking about like gender identity with elementary school kids, but then be against a video that actually shows, hey, if somebody gets pregnant, here's what happens with the development of that baby? You would think that would be something that universally we could all agree on. But once again, unless you don't want the science to be shown to young people, because the end goal here is to show these young people this, so God forbid if it happens to them, they realize that an abortion is not just removing a clump of cells. That's the goal here. That's the end game. And I will say it's actually brilliant to be passing laws like this and then having your political opponents go against it, and then you have the media framing it as an anti-abortion bill. Tell me how that's an anti-abortion bill. That's insane. Well, this came as a shocker in the last half hour. Wholesale prices unexpectedly fell 0.4% in March. CNBC headline adding here, showing easing inflation backdrop ahead of tariffs. The Producer Price Index, considered a leading indicator for pipeline inflation pressures, declined a seasonally adjusted 0.4% for the month after rising 0.1% in February. Economists surveyed had been looking for an increase of 0.2%. Excluding food and energy, so-called core PPI, declined, down 0.1% against the estimate for a 0.3% increase. The index, less food, energy, and trade services, increased 0.1%. So a lot of that, I'm imagining, because this is all just breaking in real time, is tied to a decrease in energy costs, which obviously has been an early focus of the administration. Some are saying that this means Jerome Powell needs to be cutting rates, that it could be a recession indicator for the next few months. It's hard to tell, right? Because you've got so much happening at once here. You have the tariffs coming into place. You have wholesalers who have obviously bought as many goods as they could ahead of these tariffs. How does that impact things as well? What are the tariffs even going to look like? No one really knows right now. Apparently, we're close to a couple of deals, according to Peter Navarro, who was on Fox Business early this morning. But there is just so much up in the air. We know that Trump wants Jerome Powell to cut the interest rates, and that would certainly be good for Main Street. Wall Street would love it as well. I mean, stocks would start flying again if Jerome Powell started cutting rates. But the risk, of course, is that you potentially have to deal with inflation once again. And that's not something that they want to deal with, obviously. If you cut rates and then suddenly you've got, folks going out there and there's high demand for cars again, and suddenly the housing market is on fire once again, although it's already on fire. I was talking to my neighbor, his son. They're selling their starter home in the area. And he said the first day it went on the market, starter home in Johnson County, there was a line out the door the day of the open house, the moment it opened up. So, maybe it's different in other parts of the country, but there is still a huge demand for housing, especially at that starter level home here in the Kansas City area. So I don't know how that could go up when it comes to demand, but you got people who are paying a lot of money right now, and interest rates are still pretty darn high on the housing market. If you cut that, you're only going to skyrocket housing prices even further, at least on the lower end. It looks like the higher end of the housing market may be a little softer with these higher rates, but you still have a slew of issues. And the housing market itself just finds itself in a very strange place today. So that is the economic news this morning. We're obviously watching it and following it here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, speaking of housing and taxes, it's a big deal in Kansas, obviously. The property tax issue is one that the Kansas legislature said that they were going to dig into, and they were going to look into, and they were going to try to take care of. They've got one more day to do something about it today. Last hour, Dan Hawkins, Kansas Speaker of the House, said, watch what we do today. He said we will try to do something today when it comes to taxes for Kansans and getting some kind of tax cut in place. That was his specific quote. People should just pay attention to today. We still have one day. Great. Let's see what happens. But there's this bubbling story in Miami County on the Kansas side in Paola. Now, Paola, obviously, small community, few thousand people, but it's a classic example of a community that used to be pretty rural, but now it's kind of getting engulfed into the metro. That's happening in Miami County. People are like, you know what? I'm done with Johnson County. It's too expensive. It's getting crowded. I'll go down to Miami County. Well, then what happens down there? You got to build up infrastructure. The schools suddenly need to get some improvements. They've got to start expanding as well. So all these things start happening. And obviously then the government is like, you know what? Let's get some money in our hands here. Let's get our grubby hands on some of the people's money. So this story comes courtesy of Channel 41 KSHB on what's happening right now in Paola.
Paola School District taxpayers are struggling to grasp a cost of living tax.
And the problem that I have with the verbiage is that it says cost of living. I don't really know what that means.
It's a tax levy based on Paola's average home cost. The rural community's close proximity to the metro is driving up prices, meaning as home prices increase, so does the levy.
In the state's eyes, your district is more wealthy, meaning more money is generated locally.
That's the Paola School District Finance Director Jimmy Hay. He tells me the district has the option to institute this tax within the next year. He adds it won't actually raise residents' tax bills and will put money in the school budget.
Well, wait, hold on one second there. It won't raise the tax bill, but it will put money into the school budget. Where does the money come from there, big dog? It doesn't grow on trees. Despite what, Joe Biden told us for 4 years, money does not grow on trees. It just,
God save the Queen, man.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. It doesn't grow on trees. So there's no way to say, well, don't worry, it's not going to cost you an extra dime, but we're getting more money. How's that work? And I'm listening to this package on Channel 41, and it's the second time I've heard it, and it's the second time I'm listening to it, and I'm not understanding it. Now, if you understand it, or you understand what he's going for there, we're here for you at 913-408-7957. But I'm not getting that one, John.
Well, he's obviously referring to car washes, bake sales, and raffle tickets and things like that. That's a separate revenue stream.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, you're right. He can build a new multi-million-dollar complex with a couple of bake sales. That should be able to happen in no time down there in Paola. You're right about that. So, naturally, residents have some concerns here. And they're trying to slow down this cost of living increase that could be coming, and this levy that could be coming after the Paola School Board passed this resolution 6-1 last month. And that's the other thing. Don't kid yourself. You look at these school boards, and there's a lot of people who are not ideologically aligned with their residents. No one knows who their school board members are until it's too late. Until they're like, wait, they want what policies in our schools? They want, and I'm not saying this for Paola, I'm just speaking broadly here. You mean there are people on these school boards who do not align ideologically with most of their citizens? Like they're cool with the guy just walking into the girl's bathroom and like, sorry? That's how he's identifying today? Or, they're good with taxes going up every single year? Like, no, that's not where most citizens are at on this stuff.
I've looked into some of the candidates that I was voting for, and you talk about word salad saying nothing.
Oh.
So even if you do some homework to try to find out, it's like, for the proliferation of the betterment of the children and the...
It's all word salad BS that would make Kamala Harris very proud.
Only the verbiage and the certain key phrases will tip off which way they lean.
Yes, because it's all nonpartisan, generally speaking, and they'll use these nice words like, just looking out for the kids. Kids first, here for the kids, love my schools.
Seat at the table.
Seat at the table. It is time for us to be doing what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on, okay?
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
No. All right, let's get back to Woke 41.
This is cash money that would fund the district budget that could be used for operational things or facility type things. It is 100% local taxpayer paid and funded.
Even without a tax increase.
Wait, the guy just said that... I'm trying to keep up with this guy. I can't.
Who's on first?
Yeah. That's it. This is Jimmy Hay, Director of Finance for the Paola School District. I'm just trying to keep up with him. On one hand, he's like, no new taxes. Everything's great. I mean, every school district in Johnson County is eligible, and they do levy for the cost of living. He says in Miami County, there are only 2 school districts that are eligible, Paola and Lewisburg. He says Paola has never levied the cost of living adjustment, and this is the first time the action has been taken. Don't worry. Oh, but by the way, this could bring us hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and knock the reporter too much. I think the reporter's trying to do his job here, but this whole package makes absolutely no sense, which tells me the taxpayer is going to get screwed. It's just a question of which way and where.
Paola residents aren't feeling much relief.
I think our taxes in the county have gone up substantial in the last 4 or 5 years. I know we're feeling it.
Courtney Crawford is leading the charge, hitting the streets to gather 500 signatures in an effort to put this on a ballot so voters have more of a say.
And we all want the community to vote. We want to decide. We don't want higher taxes. I mean, even if you do want this resolution, I still think that it should be up to the voters.
The group has a deadline to gather signatures of April 15th.
There you go. All right, so they've got another couple days down there in Paola. I'm pulling for you folks down there in Paola. All right? Stay strong. Keep it rolling. And we'll do some digging on this over the weekend as well and get you an update early next week. Coming up, I was thinking about how Kansas City media has covered, or how they have not covered, the cyber trucks that got lit on fire a few weeks back. Compare it to how they covered something else from 2020. And it is, I know you're going to be shocked by this, it is night and day. I will share that with you next on KCMO 95.7 FM. Trey Gowdy, famous from his time on Forensic Files. That's where he first made the big screen. Good morning, 822. It is great to have you here on KCMO. Happy Friday. So we may be inching closer towards an arrest in the Tesla Cybertruck fires from last month on State Line Road. I don't know for certain it's Kansas City, but Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, made it very clear yesterday in a cabinet meeting with President Trump that she's got some arrests coming up. She didn't say it was Kansas City, but of course we know Kansas City, one of a handful of cities where these cyber trucks were lit on fire in recent weeks.
So gave us a directive to prosecute the people who are going after Tesla to the fullest extent of the law, some of the greatest police work I've seen. We've made 4 arrests. There will be no negotiations at your directive. They're all looking at 20 years in prison, and within the next 24 hours, you're going to be seeing another huge arrest on a Tesla dealership, President, and that person will be looking at least 20 years in prison with no negotiations.
That's great.
That's great.
That will stop it. Cold.
Domestic terrorism.
Thanks.
That's
great
right.
job, too.
All right, book 'em, Dano. I love it. Now, could be Kansas City, could be Vegas. Either way, it's coming. So I was thinking about how there really hasn't been much follow-up reporting on this here in Kansas City. And, of course, I get it because the FBI and the ATF are now in charge, and I know a couple of people who have ins at the Kansas City FBI location, and no one's talking. Like, they are as buttoned up as it could be, and I respect that. So it's not like there's a lot of reporting to go on right now, but the media is able to keep a story alive if it wants to keep a story alive, right? They could have spent the last few weeks, talking to the Tesla folks who work at that dealership, the managers, the employees. Could have talked to, Cybertruck owners about how they're feeling about this. Besides the fact that they have an ugly car, as much as I like Elon Musk, I mean, they could talk about, their reaction. There's a way to keep stories alive in media. TV does it when they want to do it, radio, social media, whatever. There are ways to keep stories alive. It's not difficult. This story just went dead. And they're all like begrudgingly reporting on it. And then like, all right, well, we'll just wait for the FBI or the ATF. And, they'll announce something maybe one day and then we'll report on that and then we'll move on with our lives. Well, I thought back to September of 2020 when you may recall there was vandalism in the Northland on a Black Lives Matter mural. And the way the media covered it, you would have thought half a dozen people died. And I went back and I Googled Black Lives Matter mural vandalized Northland. And I got pages and pages and pages of stories on Google. I mean, this started, first pieces came around September 12th of 2020. But you can find stories September 14th, 15th. You can find stories up through October 8th. I have one here from early October on this in local media. There's an October 7th story on Fox 4. So you've got about a month's worth of stories where they kept this vandalized mural alive and well. They talked to residents about how this is not right. One headline here says it's racist. And I'm not here defending the vandalization of a mural. I mean, I would just drive over it and walk over it and be like, oh, gosh, just roll the eyes, right? It was like the yard sign crowd. It was kind of the same idea. It was all just to make people feel good. It meant nothing. It didn't save anybody's lives. In fact, we now know that the Black Lives Matter organization was one big grift that got the people at the top very wealthy. They were buying multiple homes, and they fleeced corporate America for millions of dollars. And they really didn't help anybody in the process, but a handful of people got very wealthy. So it was one big grift. But the media kept this story alive in Kansas City by following up, by talking to residents, by interviewing people, by just, finding new angles. There's been none of that with this Cybertruck story. And I know same thing here with the Cybertrucks. Like, no one died. I get it. They lit a couple of trucks on fire. That's the wrong thing to do. But if there was any journalistic integrity left, you would think they would have handled it in a similar way, especially since, I would argue that lighting $100,000 trucks on fire because you're mad at the guy who owns the company, who has nothing to do with the dealership here in Kansas City by and large, you would think that actually is quite a bit more offensive than, some goober going up to a mural and spray painting it, for crying out loud. Both are wrong, but they are different levels of wrong. Property damage to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. But, of course, there's no intellectual honesty left on this stuff. So that's why this just becomes a news story. Same thing with crime. You know as well as I do. What keeps a crime story local versus what makes a crime story national? What fits the narrative? Racial components and everything else is what keeps a crime story local versus making it national. It's as simple as that. And this is another case in point. So I hope Pam Bondi's got it coming here in Kansas City. I hope we got some big arrest happening here, and then they'll be forced to cover it again. But once again, they'll just do it from a news perspective and then move on with their day. That's what they'll do. Just bumped into one of our sales managers here at KCMO Talk Radio, and the tickets are moving very quickly for the Guy Benson event here in Kansas City. We're calling it the first 147 days of President number 47. And you can buy your tickets now at KCMO. We got the meet and greet. We got the hors d'oeuvres, plated dinner, drinks, the whole deal. Photo opportunity with Guy Benson, who you hear 2 to 5 in the afternoon on KCMO of Fox News. I'll be out there with him, and Keatsman will be there as well. So we are going to have a great time, and you can buy your tickets for Thursday, June 12th at KCMOTalkRadio.com. They are moving, actually, even quicker than we expected. So that is a good sign, and we definitely want to see you out there. You can buy your ticket right now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. How old is too old? Caroline Levitt. I called her Caroline Sweeney the other day. She's the White House press secretary. And she is married to a man who is significantly older than her, like 30-plus years older than her. And she was on Megyn Kelly's show yesterday. And Megyn Kelly asked her about this. Now, listen, I'm glad Megyn Kelly asked her because here's the thing. I don't think a male host could ask about this. I just think that'd be kind of weird. But Caroline Levitt is 27 years old, and her husband, Nicholas, is 59. That's a spread. Okay, now listen, I'm not judging. Love is love. You know, I get it all. But I'll play a Caroline Levitt clip here in a second. I just can't figure out what you possibly talk about with someone who could be your child. What are the connections? There are references that you'll make that, you know, your significant other won't understand. Now, when John makes a 1972 reference and I don't get it, that's okay. We work together. And the audience, many of you in the audience will get it. I'll play the guy who doesn't get it as the young buck. So the audience that's my age won't get it. They'll like John clarifying it. It's part of the show. But this is a show. It's not a marriage. So it's very different. Here was Caroline Levitt talking about this with Megyn Kelly.
I didn't know until today that you married a man who's a lot older.
Yes.
He's 59, you're 27.
Yes.
How did that happen?
I met my husband during my congressional campaign. A mutual friend of ours hosted an event at a restaurant that he owns up in New Hampshire and invited my husband, and I was speaking, and we met, we were acquainted as friends, and then we fell in love, as you said. And
was there any I can't date him, he's 59,
yes,
57,
of course.
whatever.
I mean, it's very atypical love story, but he's incredible. He is my greatest supporter. He's my best friend. He's my rock.
Well, that's all great. They do have a kid, by the way. And I guess she left out the part where she'll be, changing his diapers when she's about 50 years old. So that's going to be a tough sledding, but maybe they'll pay for it, John.
Well, she did mention that he was her rock. So I think through carbon dating, we can determine his age.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Exactly. So, listen, I'm not saying there obviously should be any laws on this. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. And I also think 55 to 25 is a lot different than, let's say, 70 to 40. 70 to 40, I sit there and I say to myself, well, you're both like full-blown adults. Even though there's a major age gap, it feels different to me if we're talking 75 to 45 versus 55 to 25. I just can't, I can't figure out what you're possibly talking about and what you've got in common.
It seems that it's kind of a work thing. To what you're saying is if you're out there and you're just doing a first date across the table and trying to relate to someone first time, that can be difficult with that age group. It sounds like they spent some time together, and so we're bonded by some experience relative to that, which would be not particularly age-specific, I guess. If you're running for Congress, you got to be at least a certain age, right? But beyond that, yeah, Bernie's still doing it. So
that's true.
Any age, it doesn't matter, Pete.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Politics, maybe sports.
Yeah.
Maybe those are the two things that can bring people together.
But then, you got people making sports analogies from 40 years ago before you were born.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I remember. Historical
Pete
nut
Rose.
like me.
I remember watching him. Yeah, I mean, if you're a historical sports nut like yourself, Mark, I guess you could date an older woman. I suppose that could work out for you, buddy. But, here's the thing. I'm gonna push the pause button on that one. On the text line, Pete, I was 37 when I dated a 22-year-old. Everybody says you do this to feel younger. It's not true at all. Nothing makes you feel older than dating someone who gets none of your references. Never again. That's what I'm talking about here, okay? And that's what I find fascinating. I'm not even judging it. I'm just wondering exactly what you're saying there on the text line. There's a thought that dating somebody significantly younger will make you feel young. But to this texter's point, and he was only 15 years older. He's 37, she's 22, and he's like, you know what? Hold on a second here. I feel like an old guy now. Walter in Spring Hill, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, I think it's one of these things where I know I have a daughter who's like 40, and she's like, these guys, man, they're still so immature. They like to play video games, and they're down in their mom's basement and stuff. And I think usually girls tend to mature somewhat quicker than guys, and I think that's what maybe the attraction is. You'll see a lot of these younger gals going for the older guys because you got these immature dudes their age that they just don't want to deal with.
Well, there is a lot of that. You're right. I mean, you do not want to be, I understand, dealing with a bunch of sophomore guys who are not dating for the right reasons. I'm very sympathetic to that, Walter. You're right. But we're talking about, you can find a guy who's 35, 40 if you're 25, if that's what you're looking for. Do you have to go to, if you fall in love, you fall in love. But you can't tell me I'm going for the 55-year-old at 25 for the simple fact that, I got to find someone who's ready to settle down.
Oh, maybe she has daddy issues. Who knows?
I was going to say at that point, when you're talking about settling down with a 55-year-old, he's close to settling down for good, if you know what I mean. Like he's almost ready to settle down forever.
I hear you.
Hang in there, Walter. It's going to be okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
913-408-7957. Pete, Walter's spot on. This is becoming more and more of a thing. Well, see, I didn't think about the cultural angle of this here, which is that we have a major problem with young men. Young men have been, unfortunately, maturing at a very slow rate. Women always matured faster than men. Trust me, we all know that. But now you've also got this problem here where you've got millions of men who are able-bodied, not in the workforce. You have millions of men who still are in mom's basement. They are still forever adolescents, and they're not growing up. So the pool for these women is shrinking of their peers. And that is a huge problem right now in America. And even the guys that are maybe progressing at the right rate at their age, they may be in the dating game for all the wrong reasons. So you do have this problem. And listen, as the father of 3 daughters, it's something I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. But when I do think about it, I am like, man, yeah, this is problematic. Problematic. That's why, you know what, you got to hope, I hate to say it, but they find someone either in college one day or, at church or something. Because once you get out there into your 20s and beyond, it's like, woof, I don't know what that looks like. The amount of people that I know that we went to college with who still are single as they go mid to late 30s is shocking to me. And there's a lot of it out there. So if that's the reason that now people are looking older, that's fine. Or looking at older options, I get it from that perspective because the pool has shrunk of quality young men. And we did this to ourselves. That's the worst part.